So, welcome to the next session here in the Audimax. We are back to English. It's our second keynote we are actually going to have here. It will be from Volker Drees, ABAP Cloud in Action. He did a similar keynote, similar title at the last ABAPConf virtual in December. So I think it's an enhancement package of the last session. It's like, yes, okay,
yeah,
it's an enhancement package.
Want to phrase it that way, yeah.
It's a tier 2, tier 1 enhancement. What do we have here?
It's the accelerated one, I would say.
Oh, the accelerated one.
The advanced one.
In the meantime, I still people are actually entering, which is actually great. A small survey. Actually, I have the numbers, but I want to see some hands. How many customers are actually here? So raise your hand if you're a customer. Oh, that's not bad. So now everybody that is a partner, raise your hand. Well, that's the other half, actually.
50,
so now everybody that is working more or less on a daily, weekly basis with ABAP, raise your hand. That's your audience.
Great.
Don't screw it up.
It's the majority, I would say.
These people are actually working with it, and I've attended some sessions now, and I have to say what actually blows my mind, it's a high quality, not only of the speakers, but also of the audience and of the questions that the audience actually asking the speakers. Where I have to say, wow, you are really working with this kind of stuff. So nobody is here, I think, for proof of concepts or evaluations. You actually know what you are doing. And I feel sorry for you, Volker, because these people know how to ask hard questions. But on the other side, you are really an ABAP Cloud expert. I mean, you are writing more or less, so defining the product. So this is your audience, hardcore ABAP developers. Have fun.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Tobias. Thanks, everybody, for joining this keynote session. My name is Volker Drees. I'm from the ABAP platform. I'm the product owner of one of the integration teams there. And yeah, I'm happy to be able to demonstrate here and showcase you ABAP Cloud in action. It is very close related to what Boris Gebhardt demonstrated or showed and explained this morning in this very good and nice keynote session. So yeah, due to that, I think we can also directly jump then into the topics. Today's session, I want to focus on the specific scenarios and also have quite a number of demos prepared. And yeah, of course, looking forward to your reaction and your feedback about it. And yeah, hope you enjoy it. So introduction to ABAP Cloud, I think I don't need to spend much time about it. I think you heard it in Boris Gebhardt's session today morning, as well as in the previous sessions here on stage and the various other sessions. So I think I don't need to explain that in detail, the pros about it, and yeah, the things that you can expect from it, the environments in which it is available, S/4HANA Cloud environment, the public cloud, the private cloud, as well as the BTP ABAP environment and on-premise as well. And of course, the recommendation is to keep the core clean. We just heard speak here from the colleagues, and yeah, they explained that it's sometimes not that easy, but nevertheless, of course, it is the recommendation that we should aim for. Looking at ABAP Cloud as such from a high-level abstraction model, you also have seen this slide in Boris' keynote. Just as a quick recap here, we have on the lower bottom side, of course, our database that provides the data that we can use and when building applications or integration scenarios. So either the data is present in the system or in the lower middle section here when it comes to integration services. You can also access data from remote environments like HTTP or via HTTP protocol, SOAP, and so on. And on top of that, you have your language components, which is the ABAP language as well as the CDS language. And with that, you build your domain-specific model in the sense that, yeah, for instance, a RAP business object that is also model-driven. So you define your CDS model structure. And based on that, you can expose it either as a UI service, so left-hand side again, and then consume it with a Fury UI, for instance, or you can also build analytical apps via the INA protocol, as well as use machine-to-machine integration scenarios, so in which you expose it as a web API, where, for instance, all the UI specifics are not exposed anymore, and you can then use it as said in the machine-to-machine communication. And on the Right-hand side, the vertical bars, you know the qualities that we offer, the real services, output management, nodes real services that will come, number range management and everything, the built-in qualities like the extensibility, which we offer, developer extensibility, key user extensibility, and so on. So I think all this was already discussed quite intensively. But if we take a closer look at the specific development scenarios that we address with ABAP Cloud, it looks like the following. So the classical one, of course, and I briefly explained this in the previous slide by going through the stack, is the building an application, a Fiori application, and running and operating it, which is based on the CDS data model, as well as ABAP Business Object, which introduces or injects then the transactional capabilities into it. The next aspect here is the OData service exposure for the machine-to-machine integration. And if you expose it, you can also consume it, of course, not in the same box typically, but in a different box. Yeah. So the exposure based on the, for instance, dollar metadata document, if you go for OData exposure, then of course you can also do a service consumption or use or generate a service consumption model and then consume an OData service that is exposed by a machine. If it comes to extensibility as well as reuse and tier 1 compliance, we talk about the BO interfaces and the corresponding interface views. So by that, SAP provides a set of interfaces that are released, but also internally in your development environment, you can also do the same, of course, that you provide interfaces of the business objects that you build and expose them or kind of allow them to be used in the sense that other teams in your organization or company can make use of these interfaces. Then we have business event exposure, also quite available since quite a while, that you can specify RAP business events. You can expose them via a corresponding service binding to be consumed via the event mesh. That comes here on top as well. So if a service is available there, sorry, not a service, a business event, you can then use a business event consumption model to generate the corresponding ABAP artifacts so that you can consume and react on this business event in your environment. Events can also be consumed locally in the cloud environment. Of course, they require that they are also released as part of the interface of the BDEV interface. They need to be written there as use event so that you can consume them locally. That means, and I also have a brief demo about it, that you can use this in the sense of you have an event handler and trigger a local event inside the system. So no need for the event mesh and no need to specify kind of any system-to-system communication, but you all stay inside the system in which you are. Then we have the background processing framework, which is technically the underlying framework that is used for local events, but also you can kind of stand alone, use some asynchronous processing and trigger it out of your coding using the background processing framework. When it comes to adding more capabilities to the Fiori applications, we also talk about the ABAP push channels as well as the Fiori notifications. They are not yet available in the sense that you can build your own push channel as well as notifications, but we see that in the demo, in one of the demos that was the collaborative draft. Technically, this has already been used. So they are based on WebSockets and based on ABAP push channels. And we also see that a notification can be sent to another user. Enterprise search is also part of ABAP Cloud, and there is the capability that you can define a corresponding search model, and out of this search model via annotations, you generate so-called search connectors, and they are then used in the Fiori Launchpad and can be used in a kind of Google-like search. Yeah, so of course you need to specify the aspects and the criteria that you offer for being searched on. But then you have it as a kind of a search field and you can search across multiple business objects in your system. On the analytics side, we have the multi-dimensional reporting as well as sub-analytics cloud that can be used, as well as in terms of data integration, you can use the SQL-based replication mechanism. So, but specific features and also demos that I plan to show today on the Fiori side, and I will quickly go through all these kind of roadmap items and the timing. and then we'll jump into the system and show the demos. Yeah, so on the Fiori side, or the Fiori use case scenarios, we have already shipped the read-only tree view some time ago, 23.11, as you can see. Enterprise Search, I just mentioned it briefly, how that is built, and this is integrated in the Fiori Launchpad. And this is already available since 24.02. And which is quite newly shipped, which is 24.05, is the tool bridge that I will also demo very quickly. What the next thing is, which is also being demoed today, is the editable tree view. That means the hierarchical data that you can visualize, you can also use in a transactional draft-enabled app, and then, yeah, by drag and drop, shuffle data or the entries around, and as such, make use of an editable tree view. Collaborative draft, I briefly mentioned as well, based on the WebSockets and ABAP push channel, can be used as of 24.08. That's the planned release for it. And yeah, allows you to, as the name indicates, collaboratively work on a single draft instance. So multiple people, not just two, as many as you want, basically can work on draft instances in a collaborative manner. Draft scope is quite important for reuse components in the sense like attachments, which you plan to come up with, as well as nodes reuse object, for instance, which technically means that you have multiple individual business objects that are under one draft umbrella in a draft scope, and they are edited all together and also saved together in one shot. So no need to kind of delegate this or have individual edit actions being executed, but this is all kept under one umbrella. ABAP push channels I already mentioned, and for future analytical table, Fiori notifications, and application job integration that we plan to come up with. On business event side, as also mentioned, we have shipped the RAP business events already quite a while ago, 2022, and also the corresponding event consumption is available since then. So that is already out since quite a while. There is the derived events that we introduced with 2023, and also a little demo that I will provide about the local events where you simply don't need to leave the system and can make use of it. On the analytics side, I will not do any demo today. It's also not my core area of expertise. But here you see that the SAP Analytics Cloud SAC integration was shipped already quite a while. Correspondingly, extensibility there. The data integration 24.02, so that you can use a replication source, ABAP as a replication source. And today we had a talk, Andrea, Konrad, about ABAP simple types, enumerations, and scalar functions that are already available as well since 2023. Fiori-based multidimensional reporting will come. This means you can basically then run a multidimensional reporting app out of the Fiori Launchpad, and then just depending on what you defined your analytical model for about, then slice and dice the data and drill down and so on. SQL Service will offer write scenarios, which are not really focusing on the RAP scenario because there the write control goes via the behavior definition and the corresponding business logic there. But very important for RAP scenarios is the CDS table entities that we plan to provide, which would then reduce the need for having a database table and then a CDS view on top of it, but they will then just become one. Yeah? So this means you directly expose a CDS entity as such, and which includes then the database part. And this is then quite nice. And the graphical CDS modeler for Business Application Studio, BAS, is planned as well. Then something really interesting, I would say, Hello ABAP Cloud, one initiative, because we learned, I think, today as well, in many of the speeches, that getting into ABAP Cloud is sometimes not very easy, and especially for maybe newbies or maybe kind of old-fashioned classic ABAP developers that have not really yet worked a lot with ABAP Cloud as such, and the new fancy things. So we want to address these people correspondingly with, for instance, a landing page that is automatically now part of 24.05. So when you install now an Eclipse environment, ADT, and then you automatically will be welcomed by the Hello ABAP Cloud landing page. And at the moment, it's basically a link collection, but it will evolve further in the sense that, for instance, generators will be added there so that based on the corresponding system backend, you can then generate things and make your life easier. Yeah, so this is just the very first version that is then, that's currently been shipped. And the one that I will start with, as per the demonstration, is the BO generator, which is powered by GenAI. So it's a feature that is currently in closed beta in 24.05 and is planned to be made available in 24.08 for everybody, which means or allows you to generate a business object end-to-end, the entire stack, including the database tables, based on a system prompt. And this is what I will start with first. And then, field extensibility wizard. So I think in one of the sessions, you also heard about what you need to implement and develop when it comes to field extensibility. There's quite a number of artifacts that you need to implement, and this wizard helps you to define or to generate these artifacts so that you don't need to do and build them all on your own. And for the wizards, scenario wizards, as mentioned, that will add new capabilities then also to our landing page. Good. With this, I will stop now PowerPoint, and we need to keep an eye on the watch that I don't run completely out of time here. So the first one is set as the GenAI-based BO generator, and this one is located in one of the demo boxes that I have connected to here. And as said, based on a system prompt, I would like to generate an entire stack, so an entire application that then can also be run. So you see that I have, oops, I don't need to open this. I have an empty package, so just refresh it, so nothing in there. And I will run this generator based on this package. So as said, it's a closed beta, so you might see it even, not sure, but it's not yet available in GA and is planned to be available in 24.08. So the generator, and it explains the details, what it does, will generate the entire stack based on a prompt. So I need to provide the package here and say that I want to go into this ABAPConf package. And here is the prompt. I hope you can read this. Yeah, it should be good because I cannot enlarge this. And I have prepared a little prompt here. So on a pure textual basis, I say generate an app for managing travels. This app should contain 3 entities. I name them, and the travel entity should contain, so the root entity, a short text for the description as well as the begin date and end date. And I want to use a prefix for all the artifacts, so just to separate this from other developments. Yeah. If I click now next, and if I'm lucky and I'm not getting an error message, then so this prompt is now sent to GenAI. GenAI responds with a model, and this has happened now, and we see it here. And this model I can see, and I will explain this more in detail, but I just need to click next so that the generation starts, because it takes a little while, but just very briefly. So this travel entity, as I indicated here, is supposed to have a description, a begin date, and an end date. So you see what I have formulated is taken care of in most of the cases. And if I'm not happy, I could go back and adjust it and just do it again, and then typically it works out. But what I want to say is the more precise I formulate this, the better the result is. And let me start the generation, because as said, it takes a little while. So GenAI is, this prompt is sent to GenAI. GenAI responds with basically just the model information. So the entities, the nodes, the properties, and everything that is then part of that application at the end. This information is used. It comes, I think, as a JSON format, comes it back. This information is then used to generate all the artifacts that are needed from a RAP perspective. So it generates the database tables, the draft tables, the CDS views, metadata extension, the behavior definition, service binding, and all these things. So based on the pure model information that GenAI has provided, because of that textual information that I sent, this information is then taken over by our generator colleagues. They know kind of the details based on this model information, how to generate then the final app. And yeah, this is currently taking place now. It's using the Xcode library, so a reuse library that is available to everyone in the cloud environment. And yeah, as you can see, that was successful. So the application got generated. If I now refresh the tree, then you see all the artifacts that the tooling and the wizard has generated. And it's not like the former BO generator where we had the kind of constraint that only a single database table, a single entity could be used. But now you see you can even define more complex models. So this one consists of, where are my database? Not enough database tables. There should be 6 actually, because I defined 3 nodes. That is interesting. Okay, the travel node is there. And let's see if it runs. It looks a little strange, but let's see if I can publish it. But okay, so yeah, this is sometimes what you get then if you use the Gen AI. So you of course need to check if that what the Gen AI responds with is the expected result, and if not, then just make it more precise, and then you should actually get a better result. But what I wanted to demonstrate is that this generator is allowing you for a jump start. Of course, you would probably not be able to kind of provide a huge prompt where the entire business object with every little detail is then specified, but rather kind of a rough skeleton is then used. Or you use it as a jumpstart, just as on a trial and error basis. So if you're not 100% sure what is this metadata extension about, do I need this or do I need that? And so kind of for newbies, that would then be, I would say, sometimes quite helpful. Yeah, I think what went wrong is the database tables have actually been generated, but they were in the wrong package, because I of course prepared this, and there I think I mixed up the package assignment. So therefore, all the artifacts are there. I have my 6 database tables, but so is this correct? Yeah. So the application should start now. You see, I have a ready to run application with 3 nodes. Of course, pressing go doesn't make any sense because it's anyway empty. And yeah, I have full-blown application that I just generated with Gen AI. That's it for the Gen AI wizard. Now we assume we have generated our application, we have worked on it, and we are ready to deploy it as a Fiori application into the Fiori Launchpad. And for this, I now switch to context. I jump into a different box with one of the prepared travel examples. Yeah, so the starting point is I have developed my application with capabilities, I've added actions and stuff like that. And now I want to make use of the tool bridge in order to let the tooling start the business application studio, because these are all steampunk systems, cloud, sub BTP ABAP environment systems. And then I want to let the tooling start business application studio and start the new project generator there. So what happens is I press now this button, and I've upfront, of course, configured the connectivity to that environment. So what happens is it starts obviously bars, and not only bars, but you also see that the template wizard is started. So it creates now a new project, or it starts to create a new project for me. And it already takes the connectivity information. So I've provided, of course, the information about a certain destination. This I need to configure upfront. But with this information, it now starts the wizard. I can then choose the template. And inside the template, you see that my travel example is already pre-filled. So I don't need to connect to the system manually every time, search for the corresponding service. So this is done automatically for me. That's it for the moment. So there will be further improvements for this tool bridge, but at least it's a starting point, I would say, which helps you then to kind of speed this process a little bit up, so that you don't need to kind of find the exact service name, which was now exposed, in order to find it then in the endless list or filter for it. But yeah, this is automatically done now by the tooling for you, and that should speed up your life a little bit. Good. With that, this one we can close. Okay. The next scenario, or the next demo, is about the collaborative draft. I indicated this in the slides before. So I need to check for, I don't want to be signed out. It's not me. I pressed refresh multiple times, but obviously it wasn't enough. So I need to start it again. So I have prepared a little Fiori Launchpad. I have deployed the application already into it. So the IAM and everything, identity and access management was done. Business catalog assignment and so on I have done, so that I have my travel application. It's the identical one that I just used for starting the wizard. And I've enabled it for collaborative draft. Enabling an application, an existing draft-enabled application for collaborative draft is quite easy. I can very quickly show this to you, which means in the behavior definition that you, instead of with draft, you write with collaborative draft. And in addition, you need to add a share action next to the other draft actions. And that's it basically. What you need, strong recommendation is that you also introduce a draft query view with a corresponding DCL to make sure that also the shared drafts are following the authorization checks that you have in place. Similar thing needs to be done on the consumption layer. So there you use collaborative draft instead of just use draft. And you also expose this share action. And with this in place, you first of all see the application looking like before. But now it allows you to, when you are in edit mode, it allows you that you can invite people to the draft. Yeah? And you can do that by pressing this button. So this is now what the difference is. So this is an indicator that the collaborative draft is there. And I can do this. I can now search for a person in the system. I take this one. I'm not pressing yet invite because I want to show you, and I hope that here, okay, luckily I don't have a timeout. This is the other user that I'm going to invite. It's, as you can see here, John Doe. And this one should now, if I press invite, and if you look at this icon here, this little bell icon, then yeah, you see that a notification is sent. Yeah, so I've actively invited that person, and the person gets a corresponding notification. What is currently missing, unfortunately, Martin, is that a link is provided so that I can navigate to this instance. So I just get the notification that I was invited to that one along with the instance ID. And yeah, as such, then I can open the application and basically browse for it. And I find it down here, and then I can start editing this instance here as well. And as you can see, as soon as I enter it, here the field is grayed out, and exactly that field that I'm currently editing. Yeah. So, and if I change a value, of course, then the corresponding value is changed here as well. Yeah. So you can really collaboratively work on a draft instance together with multiple people. So it's not just reduced or kind of limited to 2 people, as many as you want. I have tried it with 3 windows, but if I do it myself, then it's of course tricky. It even works with multiple tabs. Yeah, so I've now demonstrated it with 2 users, but it would even work if you open several tabs. And then it even works with side effects. So if you look at this total price, which is being calculated with $9,100 US dollar, and if I change now the booking fee and change it from 100 to 200, you see that it's updated here to 9,200, but also in that other window, it is being updated. Yeah, so even this works with a collaborative draft and allows for doing these things jointly together. What is also missing at the moment is, from an auditing perspective, a kind of keeping track about who did which changes. So at the moment, the one who activates or discards, but most importantly, I think it's the one who activates the draft is the one who sets then also the timestamp and the last changed by information. But sometimes there might be the requirement in place where you kind of need to document which people have worked on this instance. So if there were 3 people involved, the first one has changed these fields, second one has changed those fields, and so on. This is something that we have on the agenda, or we discuss about, but we don't have it yet incorporated. Yeah. So this is something that we cannot yet support. If I activate or discard, then of course the system tells me there's other people just still editing. Are you sure? And then I can either keep the draft or discard it. And if I discard it, then of course in that other window you can see that a notification is sent, because then obviously the draft has been kind of destroyed, and therefore it makes no sense to further continue with the editing. That's it as per the collaborative draft. Next thing. Thank you. Sorry for rushing through it, but I think, it's quite some nice features that we have to offer here, and I think it is interesting for you to see. The next thing is the editable tree view. And I mentioned it on the slides, the read-only tree view is already out there, and the editable one will come, I think, 2502. It allows, as the name indicates, to drag and drop around an editable tree view. So For this, I jump into a different business object, but also here deployed on the Fiori Launchpad, which is our agency. So all this, as you can notice, comes from our reference example that we also make use of in the documentation, in the RAP standard documentation. And yeah, when I now start to edit here, as you can see at the bottom, these agency, they have a list of employees, and this works in a tree style in the sense that this is a real organization. So you have one person reporting to another person. And for instance, the editable tree view allows you now to drag and drop records around. Yeah, so I could now just say, okay, Anna, I grab her and say, okay, she now reports to Horst. Yeah, and this works in a way that if I release it, then it is being changed. And Martha maybe as well. And I could also mark Amelie and then say cut, for instance, and mark it here with Horst and paste it in there. So as you can see, drag and drop then works well. Of course, the regular editing works as well. So I can just yeah, type in here, whatever, ABC. Yeah, so these changes work obviously as well. I think they are more or less, yeah, given for granted. But yeah, I think this is the interesting part. Of course, it works also with bigger hierarchies. The hierarchies, they work they operate in a lazy loading mode. This means only those that you expand are being loaded. This, of course, is a tiny hierarchy with only 20 entries there, but of course there could be larger ones. And yeah, then of course we make sure from a performance point of view that only the subset is read that is basically needed. Technically, it's a kind of HANA hierarchy, and it's also defined as a CDS hierarchy. So from a performance point of view, we try to set this up from a framework perspective as most efficient as possible. So to ensure, yeah, that the best performance is available and that no kind of own logic needs to be applied here. And it also works in a similar declarative way. It's it requires a bit more code than the collaborative draft that I showed before. Of course, you need to define the corresponding self-association. You need to define the HANA, the CDS hierarchy, which is then activated and generates the HANA hierarchy. And then you need to add this into the behavior definition and declare that this is actually a hierarchy with link and unlink actions. So a few things that need to be defined here, but also kind of no rocket science so far. This then works quite well. One of the reasons why we don't ship it yet, and it's only planned to be shipped in 2502, is that there are certain convenience functions that you can implement on your own, but they require quite some code. And we feel that this is something that should be taken care of by the framework, and therefore we hold this back and say, okay, no, until this is not in place, it doesn't make much sense that everyone implements this kind of boilerplate code and again and again. And therefore we said, okay, this needs to move into the framework so that you can benefit from it out of the box. Okay, that's it. Percy tree view. Next thing is the enterprise search. I mentioned before, enterprise search requires also to build a dedicated model, and via annotations, corresponding annotations, you can then generate so-called search connectors. And I will very briefly show this in the ADT with the same data model here. So those of you who worked already with the sample environment here, the sample that we offer knows this model quite well. So I've added, for the sake of this demo here, I've added the corresponding search view, which is based on a node view. And this one indicates in detail all the fields that I want to use for the search. Yeah? So I, for instance, search for travels. And I say, okay, the travel ID, the agency ID inside the travel, and the name, those things should be used and considered in this search connector. And if I use this now in the Fiori Launchpad, then you first of all see by default all search connectors are being considered. And if I use this drop down, then I see the list of search connectors, and I've manually created one for travel and one for agency. So it's not coming by default just because there are these two apps. Yeah. So they need to be defined explicitly. And if I now search across all the connectors, just search for travel, then you see that I get a mixed result. So first of all, I get apps, because there's one application which is called Manage Travel. This one I get, but also agencies I get a lot, because many of the agencies, they carry the name travel inside. And I, of course, get travels because also their agencies are used with the corresponding name. Yeah, so bottom line here, you can specify your own search model next to your data model. You could keep it quite identical, of course, in most of the cases, most probably. And with that, yeah, you can then define and generate these search connectors. And they then are published via a business catalog. So all the authorization stuff is, of course, also being taken care of. And then, yeah, you can deploy it and run these search capabilities here. And if you have the right annotations in place, you can even then, of course, also navigate into the corresponding records. And yeah, I think this is also quite nice support for the end users that might want to search for whatever, 1, 2, 3, ABC inside your system. Okay, that's it about enterprise search. Next thing, business events, local events. I mentioned this briefly, that I have not configured remote events in this scenario, but I've prepared a little local event scenario, a little local event demo, in the sense that, again, in this travel application, I have specified an event here. You see this in line number 20. The event is called travel accepted, which already indicates that when the accept button is pressed on the travel and it's being activated, then this event is being triggered. So technically, such an event, just a very short recap, is when you declare it, you can specify optionally parameters if you want, and the actual event will be triggered in the additional save. Yeah, if we jump now and do the additional save, just very quickly, in the save modified handler, there you see then how this event is raised. It's quite easy. I'm using the built-in functions here and just checking on, okay, all the updates that are being processed. So initial creates are ignored for the time being, just for the sake of simplicity. Use this value constructor and then use the raise entity event, which is offered by the framework. And based on the status, which is set to A, then these events are triggered. So this means if they just assume that this is not an own application, which I imported using ABAP Kit, but let's assume that this is an application that was offered by the SAP standard, then SAP triggers this event and you can subscribe to it in the sense that if it is also exposed in the interface, which is important because then we again talk about clean core and yeah, making use of the ABAP Cloud paradigm, the development model, so that you only use released APIs, and typically the interface is the one that is being C1 released, and that's the one that you can use, not the base layer. Here you need to have this statement in place as well. So use event needs to be there, and based on this, I can then implement a so-called local event handler. And if this opens now, here it is. It works very similarly like you know it from the behavior pools. So it's not implementing a logic for behavior off, but for events off. And here you see the interface. And then again, similar to the behavior pool, in the local types section, you find then the actual implementation. And in this example, I'm just taking this event, I'm reading some additional data. And as you can see, the name indicates this already, I'm sending an email. Yeah? So for the sake of simplicity, I just sent this email to myself. So no magic here. And yeah, so this email just kind of puts together and fetches all the bookings and sends this email to my email address. And I can do this now with this one here, just rejecting it and accepting it again. And then opening my inbox. And if everything goes well, there it is. Ha, lucky. And now I can open the email and you see that the local event has done its job and has sent me an email. So bottom line, there is a standard business object released by SAP. It offers certain events. It has to offer the events in the interface. And you can then do a local consumption of that interface. It doesn't need to really subscribe to it in the sense, but you simply define and activate a local event handler class, and that's all you need to do. There's no specific registration other than having this class that is then pointing to this event, and that is what you need there. Okay, and last but not least, we now come to the landing page. Where's my, want to go there. So the landing page, I have closed it already here, just to not distract you from all the other demos. But it is prominently now also available in the help menu. And the landing page welcomes you, first of all. And this is what you should then also see when you install ABAP in Eclipse now freshly with the latest release. And yeah, so as mentioned, it is currently a link collection mainly. And it will evolve further so that wizards can be triggered and started from here, which then help you, for instance, very basically just maybe to generate a hello world, hello ABAP world, hello ABAP Cloud class, but also more sophisticatedly like starting this BO generator that I showed, the Gen AI driven BO generator and such things. And many, many more things we plan here to offer. So I said, as a moment, it's just a link collection. And yeah, for the newbies, for instance, you see in the Get Started section. So those of you who have not yet worked with ABAP Cloud can find useful links here, learn more, offers the built-in Eclipse help with the same identical content that you also find on help.sap.com. So we generate our info developers. They just provide one source and then it's distributed into various channels. One channel is help.sap.com and another channel is the Eclipse help. And here you find corresponding information. Are you new to ABAP Cloud? Have a look at and so on. Yeah, so I think it is more or less self-explanatory. Also very interesting, I think, is the resources section. So resources, they navigate, as you can see here, to the browser. Here it does a pre-filtering because I have chosen this from the beginners part. And you see different resources that you can access now. Yeah, so you see blogs, you see white paper, video tutorials, and so on. So various things that you can use in order to understand better what ABAP Cloud is about, what is Clean Core about, and so on. So very useful for those of you who want to get started. Then roadmap, also self-explanatory. You see the roadmap items that we plan to offer. Here you, for instance, also see the collaborative draft, the tree view that I mentioned, that I showed, and a few things more. If I sub-navigate to the UI services here, for instance, I have your retrieve view, that's the read-only one, here the edit one, and so on. Push channel and so on are mentioned here so that you can understand when these features are supposed to be provided, and so on and so forth. Yeah, so you see this, and this is the idea behind, as a kind of recurring resource that you can use in your day-to-day work to find information, roadmap topics, as well as then later on, as mentioned, start generators according to what you want to do at the moment, and yeah, what is your priority. And with that, I'm done with the demo, so we can jump quickly back to the slides and slowly then conclude. So yeah, you have seen the demos that I have mentioned. It was again a bit in a rush, I know. I do that always, sorry. But timing-wise, I'm quite okay. I'm happy about that, to be honest. So summary, cloud is the future for the ABAP-based development. I think this is no surprise based on all the speeches that you heard today. So yeah, it's definitely worth taking a look at it. And it's a well-invested time, I would say. With this presentation, and I'm sure the colleagues will share all the presentations of the day, you have additional links, so not just the landing page that I showed to you, but also these additional links that you can make use of. And with that, I have 1 minute left and would like to thank you for your attention.
So thank you, Volker. And actually now the afternoon snack is starting, but still I think some people might have 1 or 2 questions.
You shouldn't have said that before.
Oh, sorry. Lunch will be served afterwards. So there's one person at least. Up.
Hi.
Hi.
The event handler classes.
Yeah.
How many can be implemented? Is it just one or is it multiple?
Multiple.
And are they shown in the where used section? Or how do I find all implementations of this event?
They should be shown in the where used section. I haven't checked it.
Should?
Yeah, should. If
Okay.
not, I would say, yeah, this then is probably a bug. So of course, the tooling needs to offer you the chance to find them. I'm pretty sure the Relation Explorer shows them, which is also our kind of recommended tool in order to find what is kind of related to a certain artifact. And if it doesn't, then we need to fix that. But I'm pretty sure it does. And multiple event handlers, yes, and they are then started concurrently. And we also I had one discussion with a colleague here and about it. And of course, the event handlers are technically triggered once the original save is done. So it's automatically switching in the RAP transaction into local update task. So this means when the event handler starts the processing, then you can rely on that the data has already been written and committed to the database. So when you read it from there, it is actually present. Yeah.
Okay. And last question. Can I give some kind of condition when the instance of an event handler is created, or is it always created and I have to determine in the method if it has to run or not?
It's rather the latter one. I mean, ideally, the event tells you already if it is interesting for you, like in this case, the accepted event. So if it is rejected, you might not want to get notified about. So, but this event is triggered as it is. So like sales order created or so, it is when the sales order is created, then the event is triggered. And in your event handler, you can then check for, okay, I read the sales order, but now a certain condition is not fulfilled. I don't want to do anything. And then you just step out. But so you cannot specify a filtering like with bodies or so, where you say, okay, this body only runs in a dedicated situation. Not yet, at least.
New rule, everybody only gets one question.
It's a... Yeah. So my question is regarding the collaborative draft.
Yes.
So you have mentioned that you can add the users. So the users, whatever you have added, is based on is it a possibility that we can add based on the role-based users, or say add the users one by one?
It could be the latter one by one. So I'm not aware of any role-based approach. Technically, it works even a bit different in the sense, because the Fiori UX colleagues have decided for the so-called auto-collaborative draft pattern, which means it's automatically shared with everybody. But if you explicitly invite people, then you send a notification. So like I showed you. But if I would have not sent a notification, then even that other person would have seen the draft. So technically, all the users see it. And therefore, I also mentioned that you should define also a draft query view to make sure that only authorized users are allowed to see the corresponding draft. Yeah.
Okay. Now you?
Yeah, it's a follow-up question to local events.
Yeah.
Can we also monitor these events like how we do for event mesh?
Modify? No, the event is triggered as it is. A monitor, sorry. Yeah. No, unfortunately not. It is, well, yes and no. I mean, in the ABAP cost trace, it is listed, or it should be, I'm pretty sure it is listed, yes. So that means you can track it, but this is rather the cost trace is typically activated on purpose. So you activate it and then you monitor, or you trigger the event and then you check for the processing. It's we don't yet have a kind of a regular ongoing monitoring tool where you see all the event traffic inside the system. Not yet, no.
Okay.
Also have questions about local events, the feature we waiting the most from 2023. Few questions. First, do they have the same behavior as the business events? I mean, do we need to commit to launch the local events, or we can launch them without the commit? And maybe just as a follow-up question, is there any threshold for those local events? For example, we noticed when we used local events using IMC, there was a certain threshold, then we overload IMC, and the whole server was not feeling well after this. All the processes were kind of waiting for some handshake. I don't know what it means.
Okay. I don't think so, but I'm not an expert in that, I have to say. What was the first part? Sorry. The commit, yeah, exactly. So the commit is done by the framework. So like you've seen in the typical UI-driven transaction, where then a data service comes from the outside, then the gateway framework performs the commit, and out of the commit, then the save sequence is triggered, and as part of the save sequence, the event is then raised. And inside the event handler, it's an own logical unit of work. So it's a separate session that is opened, completely decoupled from the original one. It just receives the keys, so the parameters that you specified, and then you can do whatever you want, basically. So you're technically still in a controlled transactional environment. So that means only allowed operations can be done in the event handler. But you might have seen in that email example that at a certain point in time, I have switched the context into the save context. So the event handler starts in the so-called interaction phase. And then you can manually decide to trigger the save sequence. It's not a commit, but you can trigger the save sequence, which means you can do update operations, which you would not be allowed to do in an interaction phase. So you can control at what point in time you basically start to write data in your event handler if you want.
Okay, for the enterprise search, is there an out of the box support for workzone?
I don't know. I doubt, but I don't know.
Was it? I would have a question on the code generator.
Yeah.
How tightly coupled is it to the other platform, or is it more on Eclipse? So from communication perspective. So is it then also downwards compatible because it's an Eclipse extension, or is it?
No. It requires the backend component to be on that release level. Yeah. So
Okay.
basically on the front end, we try to reduce the amount of coding inside the RDT and rather go for so-called server-driven UI. So that means in a declarative manner, you specify what the editor is supposed to cover. And then also out of this generic description, it is then driven by the server definition. And this means the UI is basically just very thin. And the main logic is inside the backend, yeah. Okay. So to downport this is very unlikely to happen.
Okay, someone else? That's all this.
Hi. So this question is related to the steampunk. So in a steampunk, if you have an app which is tightly coupled to a business suite, S/4HANA or a public, any of the instance, and what would be the right golden path for a remote API connection? Is it because SAP provides us consumption service from an ABAP Cloud instance to an on-premise, where you rather an ABAP writes some ABAP code to consume that and map it to your cloud instance. So for every consumption, we need to write ABAP code for this. So in a roadmap, do you have anything in plan which simplify this, where you can talk to your remote destination in an easier way and map it to your steampunk entity in a way?
So we don't, as far as I know, at least have not planned anything in specific here, but at least on the service consumption model side, you might probably know the service consumption model 2.0, which is the default at the moment already. But this has evolved further. So in the past, you might remember we have generated many artifacts, a lot of CDS artifacts, and now the model will be generated at least into an ABAP class, and you can also regenerate it. So it has already evolved further, but yeah, of course, you need to have some model, and there you also know that you can have code snippets to be kind of just copy and pasted. So create, delete, query operations, so that you have at least a jump start. But at the moment, this is what we offer. But of course, if you have specific requirements where you say, okay, in this particular pattern, it could be automated better, then just use this influence circle that was also mentioned, so that just such requirements will be communicated officially. And if there's many votes, then of course we will take.
Why I asked that question, because I'm coming from a point of view of a partner who have so much tightly coupled add-ons, which planning to migrate to ABAP Steampunk. So we're thinking the effort that we need to do for each and every remote artifacts. So that's all.
You could maybe create put multiple things. If we talk about multiple value hubs or so, you could also combine them in a bigger service. Then you have maybe don't need to run the generator multiple times. But then of course you come up with a bigger service, and of course you can, as you know, then address the dedicated entities as such. So you have maybe kind of value hub for agencies and customers, like I showed in this example. You could combine them in one service if you want. So this could be an alternative, but I'm not sure whether it really addresses your question. We can also take it offline if you want. But so far, at least nothing special is planned in regards to service consumption model. And with 2.0, we already tried to improve it, and this was definitely an improvement. But if there's dedicated feature requests, of course, we are always happy to hear about them.